In the 1930s, there was an interesting conversation between the greatest Indian poet and philosopher Tagore and the greatest German scientist Einstein. The conversation centered on the idea of reality, truth, and beauty. Einstein believed in an objective reality outside the human, while Tagore insisted on the subjective interpretation of reality. To boil it down, Einstein believed in the old theory of physics, solid matter existing with or without humans, while Tagore was alluding to the mysterious theory of quantum physics, that our perception or observation of matter is never really objective. The conversation illustrated the differences in Eastern and Western ways of thinking about reality, one more pragmatic while the other more spiritual. Now let's look at the typical hero in the East and West. A Western hero wants to change the world to make it better for himself and those around him, while an Eastern hero wants to change himself. Western superheroes fight evil to restore justice, peace, correct the incorrect, while Asian heroes either accept their fate or retreat to a forest for some contemplation. Jesus, perhaps the greatest Western hero, confronted injustice and paid for it with his own life. A sacrifice you can see manifest in Harry Potter as well. The Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, however, went to the forest to change himself. Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, retreated to the mountains. In other words, Western philosophy is about change, while Eastern philosophy is more about accepting your fate. A great example of this in literature can be seen in the novels of the Japanese-British Nobel Prize-winning author Kazuo Ishiguro. His characters obey their fate and rarely question their somewhat unfair circumstances. However, a typical hero in the West would rebel against their circumstance to change the world. Accepting one's fate or putting up with an unfavorable environment is seen as a sign of weakness in the West, while those same traits are seen as a sign of strength in the East. By the East, my focus is mainly old India, China, and Japan. So a Western hero wants to change the world, while an Eastern hero wants to change himself to adapt. In today's world, East and West have come together a lot because Western mode of production, i.e. capitalism, has taken over the world. But if you look closer and a bit deeper, you see a clear philosophical distinction. And if you go back in time, the distinction appears more clear. Why has Eastern philosophy's main focus been on mental well-being, happiness, and spirituality and community, while Western philosophy's main focus has been physical well-being, rational science, technology, materialism, and individualism? Of course, this is a broad generalization, as there are so many philosophers on either side who are exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, the main distinction is spiritualism versus materialism, community versus individualism. So in this video, I'll look at some of the answers, but also give more detail about the differences between Eastern and Western philosophy. Does the climate, terrain, and the soil have anything to do with it? Are merchants more concerned with materialism and farmers more with spirituality? Western philosophy, as we know, has its roots in ancient Greece and later in Rome. The Greeks and Romans were influenced by other civilizations such as the Egyptians and the Babylonians. But there are very little or no written records of an organized philosophy prior to the Greeks. Eastern philosophy has its roots in Indian civilization and the Chinese civilization. If you look at their geographies, Greece is made up of some islands between the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea. So large bodies of water sandwiching the land areas. So if you want to move around, all you need is a boat and you could hop from island to island. This allows much smoother way to move things around. There's less friction on water than land. The ancient Greeks heavily relied on imported food due to its soil not being very fertile. As a result, the Greeks relied on trades which brought goods from Egypt, Mesopotamia, Central Europe, and more. But with this commodity trade also came ideas and knowledge, so the region was a hub of cultural, scientific, and technological exchange. This promoted a more rational discourse which allowed the Greeks to develop a more sophisticated science. For example, Euclid's Elements is the oldest science book, which I'm sure was influenced by the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and the Phoenicians. Pythagoras developed his mathematics. Aristotle studied all kinds of things, including animals. In fact, the first Greek philosopher, Thales, was an olive merchant himself, who based his philosophy on water being the most important thing in the world. He famously predicted that good weather, i.e. lots of rain, produced lots of olives, so he got very rich. So the Greeks relied on trade, which allowed the exchanges of ideas and practical sciences. Indian and Chinese civilizations, however, are more centered around rivers and mountains. In other words, quite different from ancient Greece. India and China were blessed by its many rivers that brought amazing soil from the Himalayas, so their agricultural economy could sustain a huge population and big cities, making China and India mostly self-sufficient. Trade with other peoples was a plus but not essential. China's Yellow and Yangtze rivers and ancient India's Indus and the Ganges rivers are all stored in the snowy mountains of Himalayas and traverse thousands of kilometers, which bring the fertile soil. It's no surprise that both India and China relied on a crop that is incredibly water thirsty, rice. It's also no surprise that Sadhguru, the greatest Indian guru in the world today, has a simple message: save the soil. Because soil and farming run really deep in Eastern philosophy. So Greece's geographical terrain allowed trade to flourish between various peoples and cultures, while ancient China and India relied on their rivers to bring good soil to them. The Greeks had to seek food from somewhere else, while the Chinese and Indians waited for their rivers to bring food to them. As a result, from a survival point of view, for the Greeks, merchants were the most important class of people, while in the East, farmers were the most important class of people. Since merchants are mobile while farmers are stationary, because you cannot carry around your land, these allowed the Greeks to be more open-minded to new ideas, new technology, new sciences. Merchants are also less attached to their ways, therefore easily follow the market or commodity. Today you sell rice, tomorrow potato. Farmers, however, have a harder time to change and adapt quickly. So Western philosophy geared more towards pragmatic sciences, while Eastern philosophy geared more towards spiritualism. If merchants don't like something, they change, but if farmers don't get enough water, they wait for the following season or accept their fate. It's harder to leave your land and migrate. So Western philosophy is more change-oriented, while Eastern philosophy is more fatalistic. In other words, you change yourself. Climate also plays a role. India and China tend to be warmer throughout there, so it makes sense to be in here and now, which Buddhism teaches. Also, seasons play a predictable pattern every year, and people live a more cyclical life. Monsoon comes every year. Rivers flood at a specific time of the year. In a way, it was very similar to the Egyptian way of life around the River Nile. Of course, when you rely on a river, you also experience great famines, but they come every few years or decades. The Greeks navigated the seas where you're for the most part in control of where you're going. Meanwhile, Eastern civilizations were centered around rivers. On rivers, your course is fixed. The river takes you where the river takes you. As a result, Eastern philosophy is more fatalistic. The fate of humans, animals, and plants are in the hands of the same rivers. It meant that they saw all living beings as part of one big family. So they didn't put humans as being outsiders or special or above everybody else. In Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, we are not only from nature, we are nature, just like other living beings. The Greeks, however, experienced colder winters, so they had to source and accumulate food for colder days. Since they relied on trade, wars always disrupted trade routes, which meant you had to source your food from somewhere else. Merchants relied on peacetime to continue trade, but they also benefited from wars as certain commodities were more sought after. It is the old adage, war fuels the economy, as money is moved around faster than peacetime. Since things are pretty unpredictable, the Greeks had to think long-term and prepare not just for the cold winter, but for the future in case of warfare. Future became the most important time, not here now, but next month, next year. You couldn't afford to be here now like a Zen Buddhist. So this long-term or linear perception of time became the dominant way of looking at the world among the Greeks. A famous example is Aristotle's teleological philosophy that everything has a purpose, usually a single destination in the future. Western philosophy also, through an exchange with the Middle Eastern religions like Judaism, Christianity, and later Islam, came to understand that humans were separate from the animal kingdom. We are kicked out of the Garden of Eden, punished for our mistakes. As a result, you try to compensate for your past mistakes. You want to correct the incorrect. What do? You fight for causes. If you look at literature, heroes are often people who have sinned or made terrible mistakes. To redeem themselves, they fight injustice. One way to fight for injustice is to make other people's life better, often materially. You study the world, you invent new technology to make life easier for others. Eastern philosophers were not looking for material comfort, but more for mental and spiritual comfort. Buddha and Laozi left the city and their spiritual quest and went to the mountains and forests. Solitude allows you to seek answers inside you, not on the outside. Even today, most Buddhist temples in India, Japan, and China are located in the mountains and forests, away from the crowd, so people can get away from other people. The core doctrine of Buddhism is that material comfort doesn't make you happy in the long run. The Greeks, however, gathered in the city to debate and dialogue, like Socrates, who would walk around on the streets of Athens asking people questions, while others established schools like Plato's Academy or Aristotle's Lyceum. Western philosophy relied on dialogue and exchange, like merchants do, to flourish, learn, and improve. The West built universities, churches, and schools in the middle of town and villages so everyone could come, not some remote temples that nobody could go to. In Eastern philosophy, you don't force your will on nature to control or change it, but you try to flow with nature. Since both India and Chinese civilization were centered around rivers, often river flow is seen as nature's way, in which you don't resist or remove obstacles in your way, but move around those obstacles. In other words, you change yourself, not the outside world. A good example is Indian traffic moves around an obstacle, be it a cow or an accident. While in the West, a small accident on the road brings everything to a halt. So Eastern philosophy tells you to be more fluid, flexible like yoga, and less rigid. But Western philosophy relies on manipulating nature through science and technology to make life easier for humans. As a result, we live in a very comfortable period in history. Millions of people couldn't survive to adulthood, but today, child mortality is at its lowest in history. People live longer, healthier. But this also has negative consequences for other species on Earth, as the more comfortable we are, the harder it becomes for some other species in some areas. Asians are on average physically smaller than Europeans, perhaps due to genetic mutation or sexual selection, or possibly due to eating less protein, as farmers rely on rice, which is a staple diet in most of Asia. How to cope with poor diet? Martial arts in China and yoga in India are used to strengthen and discipline the body. Eastern philosophy centers on the body as a vehicle to get to a higher place. And this also means Eastern philosophy is more about avoiding conflict rather than confronting others. Taoism and Buddhism and Hinduism promote non-violence. Vegetarianism, although trendy in the West today, has been practiced in the East for thousands of years. Jainism is an Indian religion that promotes strict vegetarian diet, and Gandhi, a pacifist himself, admired Jainism for that. Unlike Asians, the Greeks ate a lot of bread, which is 4 times more protein-rich than rice. Since the Greek states were constantly fighting against one another, as well as the Persians, they developed the Olympic Games, which was to train soldiers for wars. It is no surprise that it was the Greeks who made it all the way to India through Alexander the Great. While we have no records of invading armies from India or China going to Persia or the Middle East, it was the nomadic Mongols who made it to Europe, not the more sophisticated civilizations like the Chinese and Indians. In fact, the Chinese built walls to shield themselves from the Mongols. And India was ravaged by a series of invasions by the Greeks, the Persians, the Muslims, the Mongols, and even the British. Why? Eastern philosophy is less centered on conquering the world, but conquering yourself. For example, Buddhism is centered on the inner conflict of fighting or resisting your own desires. If you focus on your inner conflict, you are less likely to engage in an external physical conflict such as tribal or ideological. In Hindu yogi teaching, your soul is the real you, while your physical body is acquired through food you put in your mouth. Not just that, you also acquire your ego or the sense of self through impressions and experiences with others. So your soul is permanent and your body and ego are temporary, fleeting, and acquired. Now, Einstein versus Tagore conversation on the nature of reality makes sense. Einstein sees an external world, while Tagore sees everything internal. In other words, yogi philosophy is based on the pursuit of becoming one with the universe. Quantum physics has a similar theory that as soon as you observe something, you change it. In other words, we are not separate from the world or universe, we are with the universe. The world is not outside us, but we are the universe. It's inside us. So yoga is one way to tap into or get closer to your universal soul by taming your body and ego and desires. The idea is to let your soul control you, not your body control your soul. Eastern philosophy is based on negation of self, while Western philosophy is firmly rooted in the idea of the individual self. As a result of this, the East tends to be more communitarian, where the individual is less important than the community or the universe, while the West tends to be more individualistic. Buddhism's core philosophy is to remove the self to ease suffering. Wanting or desiring is seen as negative because you are feeding the ego. The Greeks are more of a merchant's mentality to grow more profit and become wealthier and wealthier. merchants are more focused on material success and less concerned with the spiritual side of life. As a result, it was the Greeks who developed a more rational scientific method to understand the material world. This scientific method allowed objectivity, which meant that Greek scholars could disagree with their mentors. Even thinkers like Plato openly disagreed with his teacher Socrates, and Aristotle questioned Plato. In the East, however, openly questioning your teacher was and still is a form of disrespect. Instead of finding flaws in those older than you, you're supposed to respect. This is especially important in Confucianism. Sensei is someone you do not challenge. Western philosophy makes a distinction between good and evil as almost separate entities and separate individuals or even groups. Often in warfare, the enemy is seen as evil to motivate your soldiers to die in defense of good. This is true on both sides. So once you assign goodness with one way of seeing the world, the opposite of that is naturally bad or even evil. This battle of good against evil allows progress. Those victorious can claim goodness. In the East, however, both good and bad are seen as more psychological and less ideological. So good and bad are one or two sides of the same coin. The yin and yang in Taoism means every person has dark and light, good and evil built in them. Good and evil coexist, so no matter how much a society progresses, it doesn't change the core yin-yang existence. We as humans are neither good nor bad, but a bit of both. Our job is to understand this so we keep a good balance between the two forces. I think the most fundamental difference between Eastern and Western philosophy is the idea of linear progress in the West versus a cyclical notion in the East, especially in Indian philosophy. The Greeks believed in progress. Socrates developed his questioning method of getting to the objective truth. Plato introduced the idea of perfection, and Aristotle came out with telos for purpose. So getting to Socratic truth, Platonic perfection, and Aristotelian telos or purpose gave birth to a Western progressive philosophy and science. So instead of focusing too much on the spiritual side of life, the West focused on making the physical life easier by deploying a scientific method to understand the world and invent technologies that made life easier. As a result, most people today live a comfortable life thanks to Western civilization. People live longer thanks to Western medicine and technology. When survival is no longer an issue, people seek meaning and purpose. So Eastern philosophy plays a major role in bringing inner peace for millions of people in the East as well as in the West who seek meaning beyond material comfort. So to sum up, climate, terrain, and food impacted how the East and West prioritized philosophical understanding of the world. The Greeks relied on merchants and trades, so the priority went to practical sciences and rationality, while in the East, farming allowed big cities to flourish and people live longer. As a result, philosophers were seeking happiness, not physical comfort. Life expectancy also grew in the East, which allowed more reflection in old age. When young, people seek success, but in old age, people search for meaning. Next, I'll discuss the Greek trio of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle by looking at their similarities and differences.